Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 52 of Uncommon Sense. Craig Kamanis and Dean Holmes here. Wishing you a happy Thursday or whatever day it is when you're listening on your favorite podcast. If anyone that is listening live on LinkedIn or YouTube, thank you. If you can write a message or a question on there live, you can do so. But as always, you can talk to Craig and I almost any time. On the phone, video, or email, although we'll talk about which one's better throughout the day. Craig, throwing over to you to open today's conversation with a little bit of a story.
Yeah, thank you, Dean, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us, or good morning, good evening, and good night if you're on the podcast. But yeah, today we want to talk about relationships and maybe get a little old-fashioned on some people, so you might have to just bear with us on that. But it's about relationships and actual people relationships and having a network of people that you've got that can help you with all sorts of different things. But how to then maintain that relationship, build that relationship, and ensure that, I guess you're that person's in that person's network. You're one of those people that when the phone rings or something pings that you go, oh, that's that person. They're in my network. We've got a good relationship. I want to help them. And it starts off, Dean, in its most simplest of senses. And I want to draw on the barista one. Long time ago, hosted a big event for a lot of people under 30. And then one of the speakers there got up on stage in the morning and said to them, I want you to put your hand up if you got a coffee, a tea, or something from someone out the front, one of the facilities this morning. And like every hand went up because they all needed coffee after the night before. And then he said, I want you to keep your hand up if you know the name of the person that made you that drink. And they all went down. And it was a real reality check moment to sort of go so every single one of you ordered a drink from that person. Did anyone ask what their name was or introduce themselves? Did anyone ask how their day was or anything like that? Now, that was a one-off moment, but when you think about your local coffee shop, how much better is your experience going to be if you're going there every day, if you know the barista, if you've got some friendly banter and you actually have a relationship with each other to the point that maybe when they see you coming, they actually start making your coffee. And that's the whole point of our conversation today, Dean, is relationships with the right people to get stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll go into a couple of work ones, but I still remember what I'll call my first barista when I was working at ComSec, essentially 20 years ago, Craig Kamanis. And so she would see me walking across the thing. I looked a little bit younger, youthful hairstyle, of course, back then. And she would see me coming across the thing and she would make my coffee. And disappointingly, then I would have to leave, Craig, because she was so efficient that it was already made by the time I got there. But you don't necessarily get the benefits of the relationship without first investing in it. And so the theme of what we want to talk to everyone today is that how we're navigating and managing the relationships at a business level, whilst acknowledging that everyone is time poor, busy, texting, email, TikToking, etc. What are the things that we want to remind our community about building great relationships over time? And so, Craig, the first one for you, you've worked with a particular team with an older advisor in their 50s with a younger team, and the team have been quite confused as to why the owner of the practice does a lot of networking.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, Dean. So obviously, as you said, the older principal who had to build this business from zero, right? And then obviously the teams joined along the way. But one of the questions they often get is, I just don't understand why you give up so much of your personal time to, meet with perhaps BDMs from product providers or your licensee representative or, the community you're part of or, all of these different people. You seem to just give up a lot of that time, and I don't get it. The day finishes, I just want to go home. This happens, whatever, all of those type of things. Can you kind of explain it to me? And to the very point of the whole subject for today, it's for that very reason is that, when you're running a business, you're going to have people that you need, sometimes more regularly than others, but you're going to have people that you need at some point in time. And if you've got a relationship with them, when you need them, it's going to be a far more conducive conversation and probably a far better two-way win-win street than if you don't have a deep relationship with them.
Yeah,
And so his method was that, I want this business to run smoothly. I want it to run successfully. And I want a really good network of people around me that we have a two-way street with that will support me through that. And so that's why I actually go and do all of those things. Not being
absolutely.
accessible or not having those relationships is only going to be detrimental to me.
Yep, I get that. And the
Yeah.
thing that, as you've been in the industry as I have for 20 years, I think it's important to highlight that, say, the BDMs as one category that we talk to, they've also been in the industry for 20 years. And so they've most likely not been at the same company for 20 years. But I can tell you some of the BDMs that I knew 20 years ago that I first started, I still know them today and still talk to them in the industry. And so I think the first thing is you learn a lot of information back and forth by having that long-term relationship. And sometimes they'll go to a firm that you don't want to use, but it might be 3 to 5 years, and then they'll come to someone else that you'd like to use, for example. And so the information sharing, I think, is really one really important one. My first Vanguard BDM, his name's Manny Damianakis, he's gone from index to active, back to index again over his career with a couple of different things as well that he's done. But we have a great catch up. Doesn't need to be frequent, but we actually share a lot of information about how the industry is going, what we're seeing, and things like that. And so I think information is something that we get is underrated, Craig, I suppose, in terms of managing and working on a relationship over time. Obviously, I think that there's a bit of problem solving that can happen. Now, that might happen in your closeness to a product, a BDM, or that BDM that's you're working with, for example. But I absolutely can confirm over my career that there's been lots of situations where the only reason why I was able to get a problem solved to the client's satisfaction was due to the relationships that I had within that company. And if I hadn't been working on those relationships for mutual benefit for the last X number of years beforehand, the answer would have been no. But yet the answer is, let me have a look at that, or I'll think about that, or I'll have to come back to you, as opposed to the answer being no. And so I think that problem solving is obviously a second key part of, let's say, BDMs, about managing that relationship over time. What can you do to make a BDM feel happy, Craig? Is pay for the coffee.
Yeah, exactly right. It's one of those things you always remember. If you've ever been in any of those types of roles, you 100% remember the people that that did that.
Yep.
And I think then the extension of that is, Dean, is that you might need them to help solve something that's going on within the company that they represent. But then when you have another issue that your business is facing, like, I want to expand, so who's for sale? Who should I go and talk to? Or I'm looking for a new advisor, or I wonder what the best software systems out there are that practices are using. If you've got relationships with these people, they are in and out of businesses all of the time.
Yep.
And you know what? If you have a relationship and you ask that question, you're going to get quality content back. If you don't, I don't think you should expect it back.
No. You can't just be a taker in that context.
Yeah.
Hey, because they won't. If the relationship isn't there, and relationship doesn't mean you're buying their product or flogging their product or anything like that. Relationships is on a different level to that altogether. But if you don't have a relationship, you almost haven't earned the right to have that conversation. And so, and that goes to, I can remember, if you're a younger BDM, for example, or a younger advisor, when the BDM comes in, they want to learn, and their questions are trying to learn a little bit about your business so they can help you. And I think the bit that got missed there, Craig, is they're actually willing to help you. They're not just trying to sell you something that you don't need or anything like that. They're generally going through a process of understanding your business so that they can help you at some stage in their career, which may not be at the company that they're working at this particular point in time.
Exactly right, mate. Exactly.
So tell us about how to go about, building these relationships, calling, meeting, text message, email, like what have you noticed over the last few years about how that might have changed, and what's a good lesson that we can take from that?
Yep. Now strap yourself in, mate. This thing here, believe it or not, you can actually ring someone on it. You know, to my maths teacher who said you need to remember this off the top of your head because you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket, you were wrong. But but anyway, this thing actually calls people too. You can have a voice-to-voice chat, and you know, I just worry. And you know, all the haters out there, you can start saying, "Oh, look at that old guy talking." But I just worry that the element of actually just talking to someone and actually speaking is dropping away and away and away. And we all know that text is quick and convenient, right? And we know that email allows me to take that problem off my shoulders and put it into someone else's inbox. But what you can't control with written language is the perception of the person who's written it and the perception of the person who's reading it. And I still believe that a lot of miscommunication happens between emails where it looks like someone's furious or they've misinterpreted something. And you read that, but then if you just actually speak to them, the whole scenario is different on both sides. And so with you, Dean, you can ping an email out there. Like, I've got a problem with you, Dean. Something's happened, and I just ping you an email going, and I'm not happy about this. I thought you said X, but it feels like Y, and someone else has given me feedback. And I send that email to you. Number one, I'm not going to get an instant response because I know you manage your emails properly, and the time you spend in them, right? But I'm not going to get an immediate response. And so I'm still going to carry that issue on my shoulders for as long as it takes you to get back to me. If you're like me, sometimes my reply is, can we speak? And then, so that's then delayed it again until you actually find the opportunity to talk to each other. So my encouragement would be right back to that beginning where you started typing the email, pick up that little bad boy and, dial the number and see if they're available.
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your email, then if you do follow up with an email, you're like, oh, I just tried to call you, but I thought I'd jot it down so you can have a look at in the interim. So the interesting thing to us to reflect on here, Craig, is some of the younger generations, they're called Gen Z, they're in the workforce as we know now, they don't like to make phone calls. So it's a generational thing that we're trying to understand. You can Google it. It's a thing, ladies and gentlemen. But if you take it as the truth for the moment, or go down the road and talk to one of your Gen Ys, they think that if you're calling, your arm has been cut off. Okay. Yeah. So it's an emergency, which calling a Gen Z will invoke that potential fear in them. Okay. But if you flip it around and like if you're a younger advisor or BDM, older people are expecting you to pick up the phone in order to solve that problem, not to have this email or text message tennis match back and forth. And so I think it's really interesting whether this is relationships in general. If as the older advisor in the practice, you're going, I don't know why my young staff won't call my clients to book them in for the meeting. Their response might be something like, yeah, I've emailed them, I've texted them, right? And they're not doing that phone call part. It's actually more training and education that's needed at that point in time, Craig, to actually get them comfortable with the value of making the phone call to the other person. And so making the phone call to the other person will actually find out what's wrong really quickly. Oh, I didn't get the email. Oh, I don't want a meeting this month. Oh, I've got a few things I need to sort out before I come into that meeting. Oh, great. How can I help you with those?
Yep.
The conversation can solve a lot of those things relatively quickly as a result. And so we have to remember that, yes, can be an age difference. There's a style difference. Yes, I don't want to interrupt Craig Kamanis's day by making a phone call, but also look at the benefit that can come from that phone call that you do make. And so you had one, Craig, like that called you, and then everyone's happier as a result of doing the phone call.
Yeah, like the end of the call, I feel so much better now for having spoke to you. Well, okay, you could have done that 3 weeks ago, and you wouldn't have been worried about all of the other stuff that happened. But on the phone thing too, Dean, I remember working with one practice who's got a number of PYs coming through into advisors. And the principal in that firm ran a session called Pick Up the Phone. Like here's a whole group of clients that you need to meet with. And you should have seen them scrambling, right? They were trying to get other people in the business to make the phone call. They were all this stuff. And so he just got them in a room and basically said, this session is called Pick Up the Phone. If you want an appointment with the client, pick up the phone. If you want to write new business, pick up the phone. If you want to build a reputation as a great advisor, pick up the phone. And every point he had on the development of where you want to get to, the answer pick up the phone was relevant to every single point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you that whilst the client may not know when their annual review date is due and things like that, if you call 20 clients, you'll have a certain number of them that will say the following: I've been meaning to call you, Dean. And so the element, and when they say I've been meaning to call you, that's what they actually mean. They weren't saying, oh, I was meaning to jot down some thoughts and email them through, or I was going to text you my problems and see if you could solve them remotely. I was meaning to call you because I've got something that I need to talk to you about, and I can't articulate it in an email. Because it's not an email kind of thing. So I definitely think that idea of going, I've been meaning to call you, that's a response that you get from clients when you call them. That shows you that they value the phone call back as well. So I absolutely get it, that we should be when we're thinking about emailing, going, can we call? If we're thinking about calling, do we want to do the video call? Now, maybe that needs to be organized. Incidentally, for all the video calls that we do, we don't seem to just dial and do a video call on the phone, but you can obviously do that if you'd like to. But all of that is relationship building at its core to get communication and dialogue back with the client. So, Craig, what's this network of people that you build over time? How can that impact an advisor in their day job?
Well, mate, it's just you're going to get stuff done more quickly, right? That's the reality of this and it's anything like, having that solid network of people I know I can call who I can rely on for different topics is just going to make life easier day to day. And, so what does that really mean, right? What that means is regardless of the size of your firm, it's probably going to function a little bit better. Your people within your firm are probably going to be happier because of the relationships that you've built. So therefore the service that the firm gets through that interaction. By doing these things and spreading yourself out, you could probably also know that you're going to be kind of partnering with the best of the best, because they tend to be the people that want to do all of this and stay connected and be with each other. And so you're actually going to have a really strong network too, not just something loose that's out there, but something that's really, really strong that can be followed up on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a little bit like a long lost friendship. Is that you don't have to talk every week in order to maintain the friendship that you might have if you spoke every 6 months or even longer, because you built a common foundation at the start. You're actually able to do quite well thereafter. So you definitely don't have to run around and be going out networking all the time. And Craig, for the avoidance of doubt, this doesn't necessarily have to involve beer or coffee or anything else. The world has definitely changed in that regard. And so your ability to have an honest video-based conversation with someone, to build a relationship, to share that kind of stuff is actually really, really good. So no, you don't have to go to the pub till 3 o'clock in the morning in order to get to build the relationship. It's more, we've moved past that in business overall now, I believe. And so it's really just genuine information sharing overall between the parties. Is that I'm going to ask great questions. I'm going to give you my insight. I'm going to look across the video call and ask you exactly the same, and be able to both learn as a result of that.
Spot on, mate. Spot on. And look, I think in the spirit of the conversation today, it's probably a good time to wrap it up, because I actually want to go and make some phone calls and speak to a couple of people. And I'm actually, at one of our PD days, so I've actually got a big chunk of that network right around me all day, which is also lovely. So
yeah, very, very good. And the PD days, as we discussed just before jumping on the call, is that the PD days, yes, they might hand out some CPD points, but actually it's a great opportunity to do a bit of that physical face-to-face networking with peers and BDMs and dealer group heads alike. So yes, get back out there, Craig, and kiss the babies as the kiss or hold, no, maybe it's just hold the babies now.
maybe it's just hold them now.
Hold the baby, as the politicians may have done in the past. But thank you very much. If you've got any questions or comments on how we're building these relationships, please reach out. If I have a relationship with anyone that's watching, it's great that you're listening, and I appreciate the work that we do together. Craig Kamanis, you're in that category as well, so good work, mates. And we'll see you next time for episode 53.
53.
Have a great day.
Bye.